Paul, it's been about 4 years since you took over at Intel. It was a very challenging time when you took over. You promised to reinvent the company, move it away from simply chips for computers to mobile devices, consumer electronics, even healthcare. That's a lot that you've taken on at that time. And how would you rate the last few years? How would you say things have progressed?
I think we've done a very good job on restructuring the company, getting us refocused, aiming at new markets, creating new product families, lowering our cost base, not just in terms of our spending, but our product cost base, to be able to bring technology to billions of people at much, much lower costs.
Was it also challenging to move Intel into some of these new areas?
Sure. I mean, the opportunity is not, no one argues that. People can see that the handheld market or the consumer electronics markets are large markets. But there's a cultural change. Intel is famous for building the world's most powerful chips. Well, now we have to be famous for building the world's most cost-effective, energy-efficient, tiny size, so that you can enable small form factors, chips. And that's different. We're not giving up the high performance, but we're also adding this new element of adequate performance, ultra low cost, small form factor, energy efficient to the product line. It's tough to get the engineers over that hurdle, but I think we're there now.
Intel's revenues from microprocessors to mobile devices, or mobility as one could call it, have gone up from about a third to about 42%. How are you actually expecting that revenue mix to look like going forward?
Well, it'll continue to grow. And in fact, we ship more mobile microprocessors today than desktop microprocessors. The other part of the business is servers and embedded. But mobility continues to be the fastest growing part of the business. It's more than 2/3 of the unit sales today in PCs. And as we bring in handsets and such into the marketplace, that I think will be the driver for our revenue.
That's actually a very exciting space. Is there more you can share with us in terms of what else you're planning in that space? Any more innovation?
In handsets?
Yeah.
Well, it's very simple. What we want to do is bring the value proposition of Intel architecture, the fact that all of the software in the world runs on it, that there's 14 million developers that know the architecture, that the internet essentially runs on Intel architecture today in PC space. We want to take that goodness and bring it down into handheld space. And to do that, we're taking the advantage of the world's best silicon processing, which Intel has, and driving our architecture down so that there's no compromise on power, there's no compromise on cost, and we have a significant advantage in performance, plus all the software. So I think we have a very good value proposition for the handheld, the smartphone part of the market that you'll start seeing roll out in 2010, 2011.
And is that also going to be here in India?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Your third quarter numbers, must congratulate you. They were fantastic, and the markets really took to them, and it really gave a boost to sentiment actually all around in the industry. For Intel itself, however, would you say that now you're moving on to the next stage, the worst of the recession is over?
Well, I hope so. Everything we've seen suggests that the bottom, at least for our industry, our company, was in the February timeframe of 2009. And the business has been growing steadily since then in terms of unit volumes. In fact, PCs this year will probably be up from 2008 to 2009 in terms of units, which, when you think about the breadth of the global recession, is a pretty amazing statistic.
Any lingering concerns you feel perhaps that we might go back into that slump, we might actually see any kind of downturn again, or you think we're safely out?
Well, of course, anything is possible, but everything we've seen and our economists have seen suggests that there's not the so-called double dip doesn't look like very likely at this point.
And going ahead, are you actually seeing perhaps more spending returning? Do you think corporate budgets are on the uptick?
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. The bulk of the purchases this year have been driven by the consumer market, and there have been, of course, data center upgrades as people try to find more energy efficient servers and take up less space and those kinds of things. But the corporate spending tends to be done on an annual basis. I think most CFOs are going to look at 2010 probably in the next month or two and decide what their budgets are. I do think there's an opportunity, a very good opportunity for an upgrade cycle. Most corporations, the fleet of PCs is very old now. 5 years for the average desktop, 4 years for the average notebook. And Windows 7 is out. So the combination of the age of the machines, the fact that they're not on warranty, and the desire to upgrade to a new operating system and new security hardware, I think could be a driver for 2010 volumes.
All right, Windows 7, that is, of course, the next big thing. And what's it going to mean for Intel?
Well, I think it's very good. We worked very closely with Microsoft on a number of features around our architecture and theirs. For faster boot up, for better energy efficiency, particularly in laptops, where we worked very closely with them on power management to make sure that the battery life was better than it would be on Vista. We worked with them on our security features and manageability features. I think in general they did a very good job, and it's nicely wed to Intel architecture.
Do you think there's also going to be a lot more companies are going to be wanting to use Windows 7 in terms of an industry impact as well? What do you think it's going to have?
Well, it had a very good impact in consumer space before. I mean, if you bought a new computer, it came with Vista. So I think that part of the market will shift very quickly. Corporations, for the most part, skipped Vista and are still running on XP. And at this point in time, that's a very old operating system. The support is truncating in time and so forth. So I think that it's very likely corporations will upgrade to Windows 7. Microsoft has done an excellent job on portability tools to move your applications from one generation to the next and so forth.
Intel does currently have 80% share of the market, but there are lots of new operating systems around the corner. So to some extent, your number one position is going to be threatened to some extent. What are you doing to stay ahead?
Well, number one, we're going to continue to drive as fast as possible on Moore's Law. We have the world's best silicon technology today, arguably a 2-year plus lead, and I think that lead is only going to extend because the technology gets more expensive and it gets more difficult generation after generation. And the scale economics that we can bring to bear on the problem really are, I think, a sustainable competitive advantage for us. Second of all, we have arguably the world's most popular computing architecture with Intel architecture today. And what we're doing is we're now extending Intel architecture up and down, upwards into the high end of the data centers and mainframe class machines, and down into consumer electronics, embedded systems, and handhelds. And what our vision is to build a continuum of computing devices, all of which offer the end user the same experience, the same comfort level, the same feel, the same internet accessibility, the same compatibility, spanning top to bottom. I think that's a valuable, very valuable sales proposition. And when you add that to our silicon capability, it gives us, again, a sustainable difference.
Okay. Do you think Moore's law will finally hit a wall?